We are live now. We can start in a few seconds.
मेरे ऊपर की लाइट जलाना यार 3 नंबर।
Rajendra sir, please start.
Hello. Okay. A very good afternoon to all of you. I am DS Rajora, Assistant Secretary General SOCHM. I welcome each and everyone to this webinar. And I have great pleasure in welcoming Dr. LV Singhal, Development Commissioner, Noida SEZ and other SEZs. We are grateful to you, sir, for accepting our request to join us at this important webinar. SOCHM and EPCS have organized jointly this discussion on SEZ, and we have been organizing regularly for more than 13 years and so. And the man behind bringing this continuity in organizing discussions on SEZ in India is Dr. LV Singhal, who has always been very kind enough to be present in all the discussions and share his vast knowledge on the subject. Thank you so much, sir, for keeping the flag of Indian SEZs high and always being with us in this important forum. I also welcome Sri Muthuraj, Sri Bhuvnesh Seth, Sri Hitendra Mehta, all the experts on the subject to this important discussion today. We are also glad to have large number of registrations of industry representatives, and I welcome all of them for their valuable participation. As we know, we are all passing through unprecedented trying times due to COVID-19 pandemic, which is posing huge challenges on all aspects of health and economy of our nation. In this fight, SOCHM has been constantly taking up urgent issues of health and industry with the government authorities at all levels, whether it is center, state, or local administration for immediate solution. SOCHM is constantly in touch with all different government authorities and our members to facilitate current industry issues. We are also providing regular policy updates and government notifications on SOCHM website so as to keep our members well informed. Whenever there is any discussion on investment or exports, our SEZs are the first to be talked about because these zones have special features and are the first choice for any business activity. To take our initiatives further, SOCHM and EPCS have organized this webinar for having discussion on the post-COVID likely scenario of Indian SEZs. We have a galaxy of speakers to deliberate on this subject, and I hope that all the participants will be benefited by their insightful thoughts. I once again welcome our chief guest, Dr. LV Singhal, who is an authority on the subject to take up the queries. And now I request Mr. Hitendra Mehta to please moderate the session.
Thank you so much, Rajoraji. I welcome all the participants in this webinar on a very important topic, post-COVID-19 opportunities by Indian SEZs. As all of you are aware that the COVID-19 or novel coronavirus pandemic has revealed many weaknesses in the global system. At the same time, it is going to throw open many opportunities as well. Despite our accumulated experience in crisis management, this virus actually has been able to isolate us all in our homes and disrupt the global economy, change the dynamics of doing business, or change the strategies of doing business world over, or so to say. I mean, it has actually announced the beginning of a new world order, which will be experienced post COVID-19. As all of us can vouch that India offers tremendous opportunities insofar as the investment into new projects is concerned, or within India, SEZ is to me is the best bet that is available for anybody who is actually considering India as a marketplace or India as a center for their export productions. So India offers lots of opportunities. Not only that, in SEZs the cost of construction is very competitive compared to in domestic tariff area. All the imports into SEZs are duty free. I mean, and then going forward, if you are in a SEZ, you enjoy a hassle-free business environment. There is actually a single window available to all the developers as well as the units. in a way that you have to deal with a single authority for all your trade operations, duties, and tariff related matters. So we'll be deliberating on all these issues. To begin with, I would request the Vice Chairman of Export Promotion Council for EOUs and SEZ, Shri Bhuvnesh Sethji, to share his viewpoint on this particular theme. Bhuvnesh Sethji.
Good afternoon to everybody. I welcome respected Dr. L.B. Singhal for his time and for we expect his valuable experience in this, and Shri R. Muthuraj, DC Sri City, and Hitendra Mehta. First of all, may I compliment Honorable Prime Minister and his team at the center and various state governments for managing COVID menace in the country in a most coordinated and effective manner. Though there has been total dislocation in trade, we hope to come back as early as possible with the timely support and assistance from the government. EPCS is glad to organize a webinar in the interest of business community. I am thankful to SHM for considering a jointly organizing the meeting, and we expect to be having much more in the future. This event post-COVID and its opportunities. EOUs and SEZ is providing direct investment of more than 25 lakhs person with investment of more than 5.5 lakh crore and contributes 7.87 lakh crore. And this is 1/3 of the total exports of India. First is the survival of two exports. Regarding this is how to mitigate the pandemic impact of economic slowdown, 50% loss of export orders, cash flow crunch of delay in payments, and global lockdown. Most of the payments from our overseas buyers has been delayed, and to retain business relation, we have requested for 50% operational. Initially, 21 days subsequent 21 days first lockdown, followed by 90 days. SEZs are bleeding for survival to execute leftover orders. We are thankful to Shri CIM Shri Piyush Goyalji and MOC officials of their support to resolve issues of compilation very shortly. On our request for 50% operation to MOC, MHA has issued notification wide dated 15/4 for 50% operation from 20th April. I'm sorry, delay in uploading of portal by many states. First delayed on 20th, it was not possible. And on days on 21st, we found lockdown in most of the states, or virus, you can say development of hotspots in few states nearby cities, or you can say containment. Most of the industrial towns in the states where there are green, even they are unable to operate. And we were very confident in South that Tamil Nadu and Karnataka was sure to operate from the 21st. But I think because of that lockdown, again, they were turned down, that operation is not possible. So now we are looking for the 3rd May as the next date, and that will be honestly very late, as you know that in our badly, you can say, hit countries like Italy, Spain, and UK, industries are working at a with low staff, and they are. We come to know from our, you can say, buyers, if they are working, why can't you at low space? So that is one of the reasons we are unable to get our export orders. Rather, we are unable to execute the present order. And for that matter, this excessive delay has created a, you can say, a very bad crunch, financial crunch in SEZs to pay for their salaries, SEZ rent, fixed cost, electrically fixed costs, term loans, interest is too heavy. And to come back in full swing, I think it is going to take more than a year. And this year, we project will be down of export sales somewhere around 33 to 50%. Because first 3 months will be lost, as most of the countries, they are starting operation from June, or some say that from June to September it will be 100%. Like in India also, we are thinking that will be 100% operational by September, October only, because of my discussions with various heads, they say that will give you the permissions also in very slow manner. Like in any industrial area, we don't want that tomorrow you will see that staff on roads. So for that matter, they said that first we'll give 5,000. I'm saying employees wise, number of employees wise. And later on, subsequently, they will see the reaction, and that's on, they will keep on increasing. So that is our estimate. That is going to take that much time. So that is will, the more the delay, that it is of course not in our hands. We want everybody to be safe. That is also a primary thing for the government to think into. So that is also, but I'm explaining from our side. That is our issues. Second is, today, the majority of this world is looking towards India, and even Japan has declared that 20 million US dollar they will spend for industries to shift from their country to China, from China to any other. Presently, we have only one act policy for exports, that is SEZ. But under the SEZ Act, new company to operate after 30th of June 2020, he will not be able to avail of the income tax benefits. Whereas the countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, Sri Lanka are offering them customized packages to investors. Unless our government rethink to give us some benefits to extend the SEZ Act sunset clause for the reasonable time, what they think fit, this will be difficult for us to compete with China, and this will be a good proposition to attract investment from overseas, and this will be a big boost to our Honorable Prime Minister's policy of Make in India. Government should plan some package for developers, both industrial and R&B, either by the same extending sunset clause, I believe, or some financial thing. We should not leave EOUs behind, those who are the old experienced engines, to waste their rich experience at this crucial juncture. They are doing well in manufacturing sector, and I am sure, I know that they are very well capable of creating some sector-wise hubs, bringing some sector-wise hubs into production into India. Like I should say, printing, publishing, that is where you see that most of the majority of the work is done in Chinese. That is more than 80%. Somewhere it is industries, there are industries where they are contributing more than that. So that I think we are capable of getting the hubs into India. This is a golden opportunity. Opportunity. And by the way, till date, EOUs are so neglected that even we are unable to get that IDST benefit. that we have to, that is renewable after every 6 months. So benefits are reducing to EOUs, that should be reconsidered. And these are the main things by which we think that we can develop our future opportunities. We are open. With this, I think I invite others for that. I'm sure everybody will be keen to listen from the highly experienced Dr. L.V. Singhal and Muthuraji and Hitendra Yua. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Bhuvneshji, for flagging many issues also. And now I'm going to invite.
One thing I would like to request that now even today, I have received more than 5 calls, not any mails, but 5 calls that SEZs, they are asking that you allow us some time to dispose of our material which is ready in DTA.
So we have kept I think very significant time for question answers. So these we will be taking up in the question answer session. We want more of a question answer session, and when all the speakers are done with their address, we will be taking up. We'll have approximately half an hour for question answer. So now I'm going to invite Shri R. Muthuraj, who is Development Commissioner of Siri City Special Economic Zone. And just to share with the audience, Siri City is one of the examples that India has been able to showcase to the whole world. And Siri City has participation of more than 25 countries. I mean, units from more than 25 countries. They have set up their units in Siri City Special Economic Zone. This is one of the largest special economic zone and one of the most successful special economic zone in the country. Shri R. Muthuraj, please.
Yeah. Good afternoon to all. Respected Singhal sir and my senior and authority on the subject. When you told me Singhal sir is there, only I have come. So he will manage all the questions. So I can be rest. And Mr. Bhuvnesh said, Mr. Kirendra Mehta and all other participants. Like you said very rightly, so this has been a very successful multi-product SEZ, and Dr. Singhal sir knows from as a barren land somewhere from 2007, and the production started and exploded from 2009. Right now we are having 37 units, and 36 units are functional before the lockdown, I mean. And last 1.5 years, there were around 7 projects. So we were after them, and saw to it they completed the project except one because of the COVID. In the last minute issues, they were not able to bring the material and the technical people from China. Otherwise, all other 6 units they have exported and complied with the sunset class. So that way we were very happy, and the units were also very happy. And you know, this infrastructure here, after this lockdown and everything, we will be organizing series of training programs on marketing, finance, everything. At the time also, we will be inviting you, and we have around 1,000 acres left for the new units to come in with all infrastructure ready, everything. So coming to this present situation, we are having 9 units functioning, and like Mr. Bhuvnesh Seth was telling, yesterday only the Andhra Pradesh government has operationalized the web portal, and there they have put all the essential units, and then the other one class is the district administration will decide the essentiality. There is our category also. We are taking up with them, and fortunately, we are in the green zone, and we are surrounded by red zone on both sides, on Tamil Nadu and in Andhra Pradesh. And today there is one zone has been brought into the green zone. That is which one? Sururpet. So that way we are very happy. We will be taking it with the district administration. So all the 9 units are functioning, and there is no issue. And somebody was pointing out, even people are bringing material as a cargo. So we are allowing them to unload and go, so that the goods after this lockdown period from 19th or so, lot of materials are coming from other part of the places. Wherever it was possible, we are allowing just to unload and go. So that is the present situation. Coming to the very few three points that if at all during the discussion I will be interacting, and my sir is there. You know, the initial assessment by WTO is there will be a contraction of 13%, 1% in the international goods trade in 2020. That is mainly because of the slowdown in North America, that is USA and Canada and the European Union. So what we should look for is we should look for the other regions. So there will be three strategies we should adopt for goods and one for the IT and ITS. For the goods, you know, the European Union consists of around 19% of our exports to that region, and then USA around 19%. So it means totally 38%. And there the main slowdown is happening. It will happen, that is a projection by WTO, World Bank and IMF. What we can look for is we should concentrate on pharmaceuticals, agri products and processed food to this area. Time being, this is a short period measure I am telling. The second one is the remaining 62% of the regions, the South America, Europe, Asia, West Asia, Oceania. These regions should be concentrated by the other sectors to start with. Then, you know, the broadbanding, and Single Sir knows, and we all have been giving the broadbanding for the COVID-19 products. Almost all zones have units got the benefit. I hope all of you may be knowing Customs Notification number 20, dated 9th April 2020. All the COVID products has been exempted from custom duty and health cess. I would request all of you, here again we have allowed 1 unit to manufacture around 1 lakh pieces of PPE for supplies to Andhra Pradesh government. We are discussing with all our units to take this benefit, just that the ideal capacity can be placed and you can look for the TTA sales. These are the three strategies I thought for the goods, and for IT, ITS, we have been very strong, and we should look for the latest technologies which we have been discussing, sir knows, the artificial intelligence, cloud computing, then the big data, 3D printing. So these areas we should diversify so that we will continue to maintain our leadership in this area. This is my initial observation. During the course of interaction, we will have more points to discuss. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Muthuraji, for your address. I think before I invite Dr. Singhal, who has been actually involved with this subject of special economic zone since beginning. In fact, he has been associated with the drafting of the law relating to special economic zones. Let me share with you that special economic zones, they withstood the global recession way back in 2008 and 9. When the entire world was into recession, SEZ, Indian special economic zones, they were performing much better, and they were registering growth and very healthy growth year after year. And I'm not deliberately not sharing the data because I'm leaving it for Dr. Singhal to share with all of you, because last year's turnover from the approximately 234 operational SEZs has been in excess of 7 lakh crore rupees, which I think crossing $100 billion mark last year. I will also share with you that we have kept very reasonably good amount of time for question answers, because we have in this webinar audience from not only India but from Middle East, and I believe some Japanese and Korean counterparts also are joining this webinar. So if they have any questions, they can start posting after the address of Mr. Singhal. So we'll be very happy to address their questions and what kind of opportunities Indian special economic zones are offering. So we'll be very happy to address all those issues. Now let me just introduce you Dr. L.B. Singhal, who is presently Zonal Development Commissioner of Noida SEZ and other special economic zones in North India. And he, as I said, that he is the man behind this scheme of SEZ that was introduced in India starting from 2005 when the law was Special Economic Zone Act was enacted, and then Since then, he has been associated with a promotion of the special economic zones cause all over India and all over the world. I think I don't want to take more time in introducing his credentials, I mean, which runs very long. So I straight away request Dr. L.B. Singhal to please address the audience.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. Mr. Bhunesh Seth, Vice Chairman, Export Promotion Council of EOU and SEZ. Mr. Muthuraj, Development Commissioner, Sri City. My colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Very good afternoon to all of you. It's my privilege to be present here to interact with all of you in these difficult circumstances. We all know that we are facing a very challenging time. Yes, we know that export orders are getting cancelled. We know that export proceeds are not getting realized. We know that the productions has been halted. We know that the workers are not working. We are looking towards bleak future because the units are not functioning. Exports are declining. But simultaneously, I'm also looking towards a fact that maybe we have a huge opportunity looking towards us after we pass through this phase. And like all of you know it, you have read it also, that the Japan, it has announced a huge package for relocating of their industries to Japan or to other places. Similarly, I was also reading statement from India American Chamber of Commerce that 200 manufacturing units are looking to invest in India. So I look this as an opportunity. Now, if we see SEZs, that if the opportunity comes and if the investment is going to come, is SEZ ready for attracting that investment, and should a person look for going for investment in the SEZ? Now, SEZ concept, as you all know, is not a concept which is confined only to India. In fact, last year, World Investment Report, which has been prepared by UNCTAD, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, it has stated that there are 5,400 SEZs which are in operation in 147 countries. So this concept is a very well established concept all over the world. 5,400 SEZs. Coming to Indian SEZs, we started operating in 1965. India is the first country in Asia to start with this concept. And last year, the exports from SEZ was $112 billion. $112 billion. And when the country's export growth registered a decline of minus 1.35%, SEZs have shown a positive growth of 11.35%. And these Indian SEZs today are providing direct employment. I'm talking direct employment to around 2.2 million people. 2.2 million people are directly working, 22 lakhs. And indirect employment related to SEZ for backward and forward integration is almost 3 times of this number. And when I look to investment in our Indian SEZs as on today, the total investment in Indian SEZ is around $77 billion. So that is the kind of investment which we have. Now, we know that there have been difficult times. After this situation arose, we have Ministry of Commerce and other departments have responded very positively and very fast to address the concerns which have arisen. For instance, during this period, the letter of approval of those units which were expiring, without following the procedure of going in the approval committee meeting, we have renewed all this letter of approval. Similarly, as Mr. Muthuraj also mentioned, wherever people were looking for broad banding for manufacturing these essential commodities, we have given those broad banding also. There was a request that the Merchandise Export Incentive Scheme, MEIS benefit, which is available to SEZ as well as the DT exporter, and which was expiring on 31st of March 2020, that should be extended. So DGFT has issued a notification wherein the foreign trade policy has been extended for 1 more year, and MEIS scheme benefit to the SEZ as well as to other exporters has also been extended for 9 months up to 31st of December. There was also an issue raised during this period itself that because of these circumstances, there might be delay in realization of the export proceeds. As you know that the normal realization period of the export proceeds is 9 months. RBI has promptly acted on that, and the time period for realization of export proceeds has been extended from 9 months to 15 months. Similarly, there was request that certain items which are required under these circumstances, PPE, personal protection equipment, surgical mask, etc., these should be allowed to be manufactured in the SEZ and to be sold in the domestic market without payment of duty. So government has come out with a notification wherein these items have been allowed to be imported without payment of duty and consequently allowed to be sold in the DTA from SEZ also without payment of duty. Now, why SEZs now? Why I'm looking that once after this situation, our SEZ would be an area which would be looking for huge investment and export, SEZ as well as UU. Reason being, if you see that we have 240 functional SEZ. We have in these SEZs around 40,000 hectares of developed land, developed infrastructure ready with us. Out of these 40,000 hectares of the developed land, even today, we have 22,000 hectares of land which is well developed with ready infrastructure, with water, electricity, security, custom officers, everything ready to be available for the investors. This infrastructure has not to be created. This is already there in place. Similarly, for the services sector, IT and ITS sectors, millions of square feet of built up area is absolutely ready for us for attracting the investment. That's the kind of scope which we already have. And if you look to the package which has been provided by Indian SEZs, like it provides duty-free inputs, whether you want to import, whether you want to take from the domestic market, duty-free import of capital goods. As I stated, that even IGST is also exempted for such import or domestic procurement. Then this is a ready-made infrastructure is available. The security concern is taken care of because these are operating in the bonded area. There is a boundary wall. Electricity is available, water is available, custom officers are posted in the SEZ itself, and they can take care of your requirement of all your import and export clearances are affected from the SEZ itself. Then when specifically a small scale exporter is coming, then for him it becomes very difficult to take various approvals. Similarly, when an international investor is coming, then for him to go and find out the space outside or to develop the infrastructure or to take various kind of approvals, it becomes that much more difficult. Whereas when you come in the SEZ, you have the land available, you have the infrastructure available, you have a single window mechanism. All your needs are taken care of by a approval committee which is there in every SEZ. This approval committee is headed by the development commissioner, and wherein the representatives from other departments, customs, income tax, DGFT, state governments, all of them are there. Why I'm saying is, I know I have got, now I could see from the screen that we have got around 172 people participating, 172 firms participating in this seminar. Many of them are Indians. They know all these things, but there are many international investors as well. So I'm specifically explaining these facts to them so that they know that there is somebody to take care of their each and every need. Approval committee meeting, once you come over there, make an application, straight away approval committee gives the approval and you get the land, you get all the facility available over there. Mr. Bhuvanesh Seth has raised a number of issues. Mr. Muthuvaraj also has pointed out, Mr. Hitendra Mehta has also pointed out, yes, I know there are large number of the issues, specifically under these circumstances. In fact, what has happened is that after this situation post COVID, this is COVID-19. Ministry of Commerce has continuously held interaction on video conferences with all the zones, all the stakeholders in the zones. We have taken their suggestions. We have compiled various issues, and I can assure you that we are going to look into each and every suggestion which has been received from the participant, and let's see what kind of package we are able to work out, what kind of changes we are able to work out in the SZ scheme, SZ Act and rules. Specifically, I would like to tell that what we have to look is both the services sector as well as the manufacturing sector. Now, if we see the exports from India, SEZs, as I stated, last year export was around $112 billion. In terms of rupees, it was 784,000 crore rupees. Out of that, around 58% of the export is from the services sector. The export from services sector was $65 billion. And the export from the manufacturing sector was $47 billion. So we have to look into both the segments, services sector as well as the manufacturing sector. Services sector, if you see today, most of the exports are from IT, ITS sector. We will have to see what kind of changes are required to be made for encouraging export from other services as well, whether it's aviation sector, whether it's a medical, whether it's a tourism, whether it's a health sector, whether it's a education sector. So what are the changes required and what needs to be done for that? Similarly, for encouraging export from the manufacturing sector, we have received number of the suggestions. One or two suggestions which is common is that people say that when they sell the goods from SEZ to DTA, that is domestic tariff area, that as on today, they have to pay full payment of duty on the finished product. They are saying for the scale, for the purpose of operation of economic of scale, they will have to look for the international market as well as domestic market. So something needs to be done on that. Yes, this issue has been received. Yes, as on today, Section 30 of the SEZ Act says that you can sell the goods only on payment of full duty on the finished product. But what change needs to be done, we are examining of that. One of the suggestions which has come is that the sales should be allowed on payment of duty foregone on the inputs instead of duty on the finished product, because in that case you pay the duty on the value addition carried out in the SEZ as well. So we will examine and see what could be done on that. Similarly, one major issue which has been coming from all the manufacturing sector units is that reverse job work should be allowed. Reverse job work means that specifically in today's context, when they have the surplus manufacturing capacity, and in case they are not able to export, then they should be permitted to utilize this facility for manufacturing goods for DTA, domestic tariff area, and supplying it back to the domestic tariff area. Yes, we are looking into that aspect as well and see what could be done. As I stated that there are large number of the suggestions which has been received, and we would look into each and every suggestions and try to see what could be done. So with those words, now I would like to listen from all of you and try to answer those questions which are there, so that we take this process further forward, and whatever suggestions are received today, we are also able to take into account those suggestions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singhal. I think it is time that we can now invite questions from the audience. Already we have received some questions. So I think we can start now with the questions. I will request the audience, if they have any questions, they can keep posting their questions. We will be responding one after another. So there is one question that what is the duty implication of goods imported into SEZ with relevant duty paid on the same while coming in, and when goods again cleared in DTA, it is asking duty again. I mean, this question is basically when goods have been imported into SEZ and when they are subsequently cleared into DTA, why duty implication? I think this is just to allow a level playing field with the domestic players. Singhal sir, you would like to address this?
You see, as on today, the SEZ Act provides that a unit which is operating in the SEZ, it can import all the inputs which are required without payment of duty. Duty includes all kind of duty, whether it's a basic custom duty, whether it's a additional duty of customs, or whether it's a IGST. Even IGST is also completely exempted. So you manufacture your product and you export it, because when you export in the international market, then your export product has to be relieved of all the duties. So that's why you are able to export it without payment of duty. But once you sell these goods in the domestic tariff area, a SEZ unit is allowed to sell in the DTA without any restriction, but it will have to pay full duty which is applicable on the finished product which it is making and which is being removed in the DTA. Reason being, when you remove the goods from SEZ to DTA, it is treated as equivalent to import, and whatever is the duty applicable on the import, in the similar manner, when the goods are removed from SEZ to DTA, the duties will have to be paid.
I think the simple thing is that SEZs are treated as a foreign territory within India for the purposes of trade operations. So whenever goods are moved from SEZ to domestic tariff area, they are treated as if they are being imported into domestic tariff area. So this is the, I think, answer. Now I've received a question from Arshia Free Trade and Warehousing Zone. Arshia has established 2 free trade warehousing zone in Mumbai and Khurja with a view to create global trading hubs, providing cost-effective and innovative solutions to the international clients. So they are saying that during the ongoing lockdown period, Arshia are operational as per government guidelines and in line with the government's effort to tackle container consignments at ports. So Arshia is offering in free trade zone and warehousing premises to ease congestion at ports and ICDs and not charging any rent for the container storage during this period. How can developers like Arshia further support the government and industry at this difficult times? So I think it's a good gesture from Arshia. Would you like to say anything on this, sir?
I'm aware Arshia is one of the biggest free trade and warehousing zone company in India, and they have got 2 free trade and warehousing zone operating, one in Panvel near Mumbai and second in my jurisdiction here near Noida. And as Mr. Mehta also stated, it's a very good gesture on their part to take it forward. I believe that I would suggest Arshia that they can take up this issue with the logistics division in the Department of Commerce. Department of Commerce and Ministry of Commerce and Industry has created a specific logistical division wherein the logistics related issues can be taken up. So once the issue is taken up over there, then this issue can be taken up with Ministry of Shipping, with the CBIC, and a integrated approach could be adopted, and then a solution could be found on that. And it's a very good suggestion. So we would also, since I also have received this suggestion, so we will also try to take it up with Ministry of Commerce, and I would request Arshia that they should make a complete proposal on that as to what they actually intend to do it. They should send it to logistics division in the Ministry of Commerce. And I also saw yesterday that on 22nd of April, Ministry of Shipping has constituted a shipping board under the chairmanship of Dr. Malini Shankar, who was earlier DG Shipping. So probably I would request them to send the suggestion to Shipping Board as well, so that quickly the arrangement could be done and this issue could be addressed. Thank you so much to Arshia for making this suggestion.
Yeah, another question is that various reporting formalities are prescribed for special economic zones operating out are repetitive, like SERF and soft tax filing. Can we make reporting formalities simpler?
You see, in the context of software export, earlier they were required to file only the soft tax form because it's a software, so no shipping bill is required to be filed. But why the SERF was introduced? The reason was that soft tax form can be filed within 30 days from the date of export. Suppose if someone is doing invoicing on 27th of March, so then the soft tax form will be filed till the April end as well. Now, when the data is to be compiled by the Ministry of Commerce for export from SEZ, as far as goods exports are coming from the ICE gate, from the customs, the data is coming straightway, no issue on that. From the NSDL also, the issue is coming. But when this is software export, and if you have to wait for the Softex form, then for the month end, data cannot be compiled. That's why, in fact, when we were compiling the data of the software exports, we found that there was a huge gap in the data of software export, which was reported by DGCIND and as well as which was actually reported subsequently. That's why, to take care of the data requirement reporting, this SURF was introduced. This was introduced after a interministerial body was constituted, which looked into this particular issue. This is a simple format which is to be filed online only by 10th of every month. It's, and not only that, it has got additional advantage. Softex form only captures ITS exports. Softex exports also does not capture on-site consultancy, the on-site exports which have been rendered, on-site services which have been rendered, that was not being captured. SURF captures this information. SURF also captures all services export also, and it captures timely information, and so that we are able to compile the entire information. It's an online facility only to be filed, which you can file straight away. So this is the objective for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I think I will request the audience to mention their name and preferably their organization also, if possible, along with their question. That will make us also aware of like what kind of sector you're coming from and what could be your perspective. So now taking the next question is from Abhishek Kumar Jain. It says that as MEIS is available to the manufacturing sector and SEIS is available to services export company, but why SEIS is not available to software development companies while it generates major forex revenue? Sir.
It's a very valid issue. You are right that MEIS benefit is available to manufacturing sector, and for the services sector, SEIS scheme is there. But please understand that when any scheme is being formulated, then the government of India has before it the target of how much revenue it is willing to forego on that particular scheme, how much is the budget, how much is the package for that particular scheme. So when SEIS scheme was formulated, so that particular consideration was there in mind. Secondly, when we are doing it, providing a benefit of any particular scheme, this is also kept in mind as to which are the sector which needs encouragement at present, which requires support. Now, when we see in the services segment, we know that in the ITS sector, we already have the huge market captured. We already have got the huge employment, and this sector is contributing very well, and we have the strength in that. As I also explained that out of $112 billion of the exports from SEZ, around $65 billion exports is from the services sector, and that is predominantly IT enabled services. Keeping in mind these things, and as I stated in the beginning also, that we need to encourage other sectors services as well. For example, education, health, aviation, tourism, and those. So keeping in mind these factors, when this scheme was devised by DGFT, DGFT has extended the benefit of these schemes to those services only which are specified in the Appendix 3D by the DGFT. And they have given this benefit to those services which are lagging behind, which are not doing so well at present, which requires a little kind of hand holding and which requires a little kind of support. So the benefit has at present been extended to those only.
Thank you, sir. I think another question is from one of the developer of ITES Special Economic Zone. So their question is that due to definition of services under Section 2Z of the SEZ Act, DTA sale of services is not allowed in Indian rupees. It is requested to allow DTA sale of services in Indian rupees, as in the case of supply of goods from SEZ units. This would help sustain the ITES units in this crisis situation, as there may be contraction in the global demand in short term. but domestic demand may still be there.
Is a very valid suggestion from the ITS sector. As on today, Section 2Z of the SEZ Act, it says, it defines services, and one of the condition is that the services has to be rendered against free foreign exchange under Section 2Z. This section of SEZ Act, Section 2Z, needs to be amended, because the point is absolutely valid that in the trying circumstances, ITS segment needs to take care of the services opportunities in the domestic tariff area as well. And we have received the suggestions. Let me also inform that we are very positively inclined in accepting these suggestions. And when we are taking up, as I stated in the beginning, that we have invited suggestions and had interaction with the stakeholders, we have compiled all the suggestions which we have received for amending SEZ Acts and the rules, and we are working on that. And I am pretty sure that when we come out with the amendments, this would be one of the first amendments which will be carried out. There's absolutely no two issues on that. There's no two opinion on that, that these suggestions need to be accepted and need to be implemented. Since it requires an amendment in the Act and we have to go to Parliament for that, it may take some time, but it's right on the top of the agenda. Thank you so much.
So the another question is from Mr. Sunil Puri, who is from SU Import Services and Yasin Lighting. So their question is that in the present scenario, you would agree that units are not going to get export orders easily as pandemic has its effect worldwide. So the units will have to depend on DTA sale more for the time being. It is suggested that a mechanism is developed to ensure that the custom duty on imported raw material should only be charged at the time of DTA sale by the SEZ unit. So basically they are saying that whatever custom duty they paid on imports, so that should be taken back. Sir.
Mr. Puri, it's a very valid suggestion which you have given. I know that as on today, as per the Section 30 of the SEZ Act, when you sell the product in the domestic tariff area, then you have to pay full duty which is applicable on the finished product. What you are saying is that instead of paying duty on the finished product, when I'm importing inputs, then whatever is the duty foregone on the inputs, I should be asked to pay only that much duty. It's a very fair suggestion, because in that case, the government's revenue is also taken care of, that whatever duty government has foregone, that is collected, and simultaneously the employment and the value addition in the takes place in the country. This is a very valid suggestion, and we are definitely looking into these things. Again, since duty implication, this is prescribed in Section 30 of the SEZ Act, so the acceptance of this suggestion would require amendment in the Act. It would require amendment in Section 30 of the SEZ Act, for which we will have to go to the Parliament. So as I stated that we are compiling, we are looking into each and every suggestion, and let me also tell you that this is a very valid suggestion, and we are definitely going to have a look on that, Mr. Puri. Thank you so much.
So I think this, along with the definition of services in the SEZ Act, I think these will require amendment in the Act, basically. So all these suggestions, I think they can compile and maybe government could be approached for issuing an ordinance just to move the things fast. So I think on extension of sunset clause, I have received a few questions. So there is this request from all across that the income tax exemption that was available to the SEZ units, that actually came to an end on 31st March 2020. Now, given this present situation, the industry, the SEZ developers, particularly the one which are notified but they have not become operational, and many of them which have become very recently operational because they are in the starting phase. So they are finding it difficult to invite units in their special economic zones. So in a way that this has affected their business planning in a big way, this taking out of this income tax exemption. Government's view, as all of us are aware, because of the WTO ruling, that this is difficult for the government as well. But then it is requested that till the final disposal of the India's appeal by the WTO appellate body, the government can consider giving a further relaxation in this Section 10AA of the Income Tax Act.
Yes, I know that in the interactions which we held all across the country in all the zones after this situation has arisen, this is one request which has been made all across by the asset developers, by the asset units, including manufacturing units as well as ITL. Yes, you know that long back, more than 4 years back, government had made its intention known. They had stated that the income tax benefit which is provided for in the second schedule of the Asset Act for the asset developer will be discontinued from 2017. So accordingly, for the asset developer, the new assets which have become operational after 2017, this income tax benefit has already been discontinued. For the asset unit also, it was made announced that those asset units which become operational up to 31st of March 2020, they would continue to get income tax exemption as given in the Asset Act. But those units which becomes operational after 31st of March 2020, they will not be entitled for income tax exemption. Accordingly, from 1st of April 2020, those units which come now onwards are not entitled for income tax exemption. Now, there are two things. One, we received a request during these circumstances itself that there are some units which have taken the approval prior to 31st of March 2020, but they have not become operational because of the COVID-19 situation. Hence, sometimes should be provided to such units which have been given approval before 31st of March for becoming operational so that they could continue to get the income tax benefit. I'm happy to inform that, as I informed in the beginning, that government has acted very fast. On this issue also, Ministry of Finance has issued a notification wherein it has been provided that those units to whom LOA has been issued prior to 31st of March 2020 and have not become operational, they would get a time period of additional 3 months for becoming operational. That has already been done. So accordingly, even if these units become operational by the end of the June, they would get income tax benefit. In this context also, suggestion had been received that some manufacturing units to whom the LOP has already been issued prior to 31st of March, now because of the lockdown restriction, it will be difficult for them even to start their operation before June 2020 also, because sometimes the engineers also have to come from outside the country, those kind of things. So that also, this notification which has been issued by Ministry of Finance, it provides that up to 30th of June, or as it may be extended further by the Ministry of Finance. So this suggestion also we have received and we are examining and have a look on that. Now coming to a fresh suggestion that now the sunset clause should be re-looked into, and the developer as well as the asset unit for attracting investment, they should be provided a fresh income tax exemption starting from 1st of April. Mr. Hitendra Mehta has rightly explained that there are certain limitations on that. It's a prohibited subsidy. There are certain WTO requirements, but keeping in mind the situation which has arisen now and the opportunities which are likely to arise, certainly there is a case of looking into this aspect again. And let me tell you that this suggestion has been received, as I stated, from all quarters. Ministry of Commerce is looking into it, and we will try to take it up with Ministry of Finance and see what could be done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for explaining in more detail. So another suggestion is there. It's not a question. So it is that if government cannot extend the income tax exemption further, so then can government, should the government not consider giving some investment linked incentives instead of profit linked incentives?
That suggestion has also been looked into. That suggestion also has been received, and as many of you might be aware, that government had constituted a committee under the chairmanship of Baba Kalyani, Chairman Bhatt, and this committee also has made these suggestions. So what incentive is to be given, in what form it is to be given, as I stated, when we are looking in the issues relating to SEZ, all these issues would be looked into in its entirety, including this suggestion as
well. Thank you, sir. So one more question is there, whether all the SEZ units, they are being allowed to start operations from 20th April, like in terms of the MHA order, 15th April order. I think it is only the essential services and the units which are into pharmaceutical and healthcare services.
No, actually, what happened that.
So their question is that whether in lockdown period all the SEZ units are allowed to operate.
I'll explain. Prior to 20th of April, only the essential commodities were allowed to be done. But with this notification of MHA, which came on 16th of April, it has allowed all the SEZ units as well as EOUs to operate from 20th of April, subject to compliance of the conditions given in the MHA notification. But this notification of MHA also says that a view on this is to be taken by the state government, union territory, and the local administration, depending upon the prevalent situation in that particular area, situation of the hotspot, situation of the containment area, etc. Accordingly, the MHA notification says that all the SEZ units and EOUs can start operating from 20th of April. A view needs to be taken by a state government. Now, what has happened that various state governments have accordingly followed up the MHA notification with their own guidelines, So wherever this kind of hotspot or containment zone issue is not there, the state governments had allowed the functioning of these units, SEZ as well as EOUs. And for taking the permission for starting the activities, again, various governments have prescribed various procedures. Common procedure which they have prescribed, most of them, is that they have developed a portal. They are inviting the application on the portal. Then they have designated agency, mostly district industry centers have been designated as the agency. They examine, then they forward the application to the district magistrate, that is SDM or ADM as per the state government, and they give the permission to the unit as well as how many workers are there, how many vehicles are there, and subject to the condition, etc., to be complied with as given in the MHA notification. So that is the general procedure, and accordingly, many units in the SEZ and EOUs, some of the units have started operating, some of them have made the application to the respective state government, local administration, but simultaneously some of the state governments, keeping in mind the hotspot and the containment situation in their areas, they have not allowed this relaxation, because MHA also says very clearly, MHA notification, that whether these relaxation are to be provided, not a view is to be taken by the state government. For instance, in Noida SEZ, the MHA notification says that from 20th of April, SEZ units as well as you have to operate, but the district magistrate in this area, keeping in mind the hotspot, that it has been declared as a hotspot and the containment, he has stated that only the essential commodity units will continue to operate as was the case earlier. Similarly, I believe in respect of SEEPS SEZ also, similar view has been taken by the local administration. In respect of Kandla, the units have been started to operate, so much so that local administration has even given the power to the development commissioner over there to give the permission to the passage, etc. In Gurgaon, where a lot of IT sector units are there, and as per the MHA notification, 50% of the IT units can function, 50% of the strength can function. So they also have invited application, and they have developed a portal. Accordingly, many units have made the application, and I'm sure the permissions would start coming. So that is how the situation is there. Thank you.
I think point is very clear, sir. You made very clear. I think they have to follow the guidelines issued by the Ministry of MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs, and apart from taking all the precautionary measures, so they need to actually take insurance covers of all people who are entering into the special economic zone. So it could be even your securities in your support staff. So you need to take care of their health conditions and their protection in terms of taking health insurance cover also. So there is one question from it's in Noida, DIN Engineering Service, LLP Noida. So is SERF filing date extended during the COVID-19?
You see,
SERF.
Ajay explained earlier that SCRF is only for the purpose of compilation of data, and it's an online application only, which even while you are working from the home, most of the ITS units are working from home. You can file from home also in the NSDL. And since if it is delayed, then the data compilation also gets delayed. Hence, we have requested that SCRF form should be filed by ITS units as well. However, we have given the instructions to the NSTL, because in respect of SCRF form, earlier it was there that if you don't file it by 10th of every month, then your activities on the NSDL portal would be disabled. You will not be able to carry out any activities. We have requested and told to NSDL that no such inability should be caused. But I would request ITS units to please file the SOF, because that is for the purpose of data compilation, and that would help in taking the policy decision, specifically in today's context when we are examining each and every suggestions and having a look on what needs to be done. Data is very important component instrument for a policy decision making.
Well, thank you so much, sir. There is one question from a member of EOU, that EOUs as of now, they enjoy exemption from IGST, and this is being extended every 6 months. I'm not very clear. I think Bhuvnesh can throw more light on particular question. So it is requested that this should be a permanent exemption. I mean, this should be made a permanent exemption.
This is a very valid issue, and Mr. Bhuvnesh said in his opening address also had mentioned this particular issue. What happens is that when GST was introduced, at that time, SEZs were provided exemption from IGST ab initio. But other export promotion scheme like export oriented unit, advance authorization, EPCGs, they were not provided exemption from IGST. But then DGFT has been issuing the notification wherein it has been providing exemption from IGST to EOUs. But that exemption is extended periodically, 6 months, 3 months, like that. The request is that for creating certainty in the mind of the operators, it should be given en bloc. It should be given permanent basis like it has been given to HL. And point is absolutely valid. There can't be a better valid point than this one, because EOUs have been playing a very pivotal role in our manufacturing activities. It's a kind of standalone SEZ unit. It has the advantage of operating from anywhere in the country. You don't have to come to a particular place. And I could see, like when I'm giving the approval to the EOU units, it's a the trading is not allowed. They're absolutely manufacturing unit. So they need to be taken care of. IGST exemption need to be provided for, not only for the import, even for the domestic procurement also. And today, supply of goods from DTA to SEZ, there are two mechanisms. It is ab initio exempted from IGST, or you could take a refund of IGST. But in the case of EOU, supply of DTA to EOU, it is a refund of IGST. So I believe there is a valid issue for providing ab initio exemption for import from the IGST for EOU, as well as for supply of goods from DTA to UAE. Now that the foreign trade policy, which was a 5-year policy, which was to be formulated, that has been extended only for 1 year now. So I'm sure that process of formulating 5-year policy would be on. So this issue would certainly be taken up and would be examined, and this needs to be handled, and we would definitely examine.
I think this issue can be represented by EPCES as well and SHM also to the government. I think this on its merits deserves to be considered, because there is, I mean, already an exemption. It is only in the interest of having a stability in the policy. So this request is being made to the government. I think there's one issue which may be, I think, concerning so many other exporters. So they're saying that right now we we operate from EOU from India, and presently we have 4 containers sitting on the port, but no shipping line is picking up the container. Government should look into the matter. So is there anything that government can help out in such situations, sir?
Government has issued instructions to the various port authorities as well as custom authorities that the operations at the ports, at the customs, these have got to be continued, and these are continuing. So if there is any specific suggestion, I would request them to send their specific case to Department of Commerce so that it could be taken up with that particular port where it is lying.
All right, thank you, sir. So another request is that during the period of lockdown, no rent for lockdown period should be charged, and no increase in annual rental should be made, and no fixed electricity charges should be there. So, I mean, this is a kind of package that units they are expecting from the developers, or if these are government operated zones, from the government.
Yes, all these suggestions, these have also been received by Department of Commerce. In the case of SEZ unit, the 3 suggestions have been received regarding rent. Number 1, that the rent which has become due for this quarter, it should be deferred, and it should be not be collected in this quarter. It should be collected in the next quarter, and on that interest should not be charged. And secondly, for this year, there should not be any enhancement in the rentals. And third thing is that some waiver of the rent for certain percentage. Department of Commerce has received these suggestions, and these issues are being examined, and a view would be taken on these particular issues.
So I think in case of private developers, I mean, they need to look into their specific lease agreements with the developers, and if the enabling clause are there addressing these kind of situations, so they can actually resort to those specific clauses in the lease agreements with the private developers. So another concern that has been raised is that shipping companies have increased the charges by almost 25%. I mean, on this, I think they are wanting government intervention, that the shipping company should not increase the charges exorbitantly.
Again, as I stated, this issue also has been received, and the logistics division in the Department of Commerce, they are looking into all these issues and see what could be done. It will be difficult for me to comment and tell that this shipping charge will not be collected or it will not be enhanced, because this will have to be taken up with the shipping companies, and they also have got their reasons for doing that. But our logistics division have compiled, and Department of Commerce is certainly looking into all these issues.
Thank you, sir. I think there are some issues relating to payment of salaries to the workers. So there's a question whether they should follow the no work, no pay concept, or they should, the developers and the units, they're finding it difficult that in the absence of, operations, so they are finding it difficult to pay the 100% salaries. So it is requested that government should support in these cases. Although it is a request advisory given by the government that no worker should be terminated, or their salary should not be withheld.
Yes, as on today, you see, it's a difficult situation for everyone, and I know that our exporters, they are also facing difficult time. but simultaneously there is a humanitarian angle also, and the government's directions are very clear that it has got to be paid. But yes, these issues have been taken up with the Department of Commerce by all the association, including FIO, Export Promotion Councils, and EPCS also has taken up those issues. So Department of Commerce will take a view as to what could be done on that.
I think this will be taken in consultation with the Ministry of Labor and Employment. And I would now, I think, request Bhuvnesh ji. I was having certain questions in the beginning. So if he can raise his questions now, we have another, you can say, 10 minutes left in this webinar.
Sir, one thing is that you are talking about humanitarian, that is okay. But humanitarian should not be 100%. It should be, I mean, government should come out with some percentage so that, you know, that industrials also want good relations with their employees. So that should come out in good spirit. I know that organizations are raising the issues, and I feel this is quite genuine also.
Well, Bhuvnesh ji, your point, I'm sure that you have taken up this issue already again with when you had your interactions with Honorable CIM. When Honorable
Yes,
CIM interacted with all the Export Promotion Council, you were also the participant in that. And I believe that you had taken up this issue there. And the councils can again give suggestions on that to the Department of Commerce. And because this is not an issue relating to one particular sector or one particular industry or one particular zone. This is a general issue on which a view has to be taken by the government as to what best could be done. As you know that earlier also government had stated that if the stance is up to 100, then the PF contribution would be there. But the government has taken on that they will be contributing. Now, what further could be done on that? Because naturally the government has to take into account the finances involved in that. So I would request the council that on these issues and the other issues of the shipping extra which have come in today's seminar, I would request the council to compile all these suggestions which have come up today or from your other member units, please, and compile it and take it up with the Department of Commerce.
Sir, as far as financial is concerned, you see that ESIC is having crores and lakhs of fixed deposit. And their instances is the employees insured in ESIC, right? The day he is employed. First day he is employed, he has been a member. So I think it is not a burden, a financial burden on government. It is ESIC. The insurance company has to bear that.
So that's what I'm saying. When you are giving your suggestion to the Department of Commerce, give your argument, give your suggestions, and whatever reasons you want to give, whatever solutions you provide, please send it to Department of Commerce in detail.
So thank you for, sir. One more thing. So far, RBI even has come out with the packages which is of deferment, deferred. Even RBI is our business partner. We have been paying interest right from the day we take loan from them. So it has to be considered either on the reduction of they should reduce or they should not charge interest for the lockdown period. That should be considered. Simply by deferring will not serve purpose, because I am of opinion it will take at least we can settle by 2021, not in 2020. That is an average opinion of the industrialist.
Absolutely, your point is there, and all these issues which are coming out from the today's seminar, please compile and give it to Department of Commerce. Naturally, a view on that, because now the RBI representative is not there in today's panel, so it will not be possible for me to respond on behalf of RBI related issue. So since on the panel RBI representative is not there, so you compile your suggestions and give it to RBI.
He will take it up. I think EPCS also can take it up, and ASSOCHAM also can take it up separately, sir, with RBI. So I think before I come back quickly on those opportunity issues. Yeah, Bhuvnesh ji, this we will be discussing separately. Sir, now there is one question. SEZ authorities and Ministry of Commerce have played instrumental role in representing SEZ units and getting SEZ operations resumed in a modified lockdown. These operations have not effectively started, though in most of the SEZ units across India. Can the Ministry of Commerce coordinate with the state departments of industry and commerce to get these operationalized, of course, with proper risk assessment against COVID? COVID fight will take some time, and if this coordination is not led by Ministry of Commerce with the State Department, despite MHA guidelines, they don't seem to move. So, as you said, sir, state governments have to be invariably taken into confidence. So they are asking that can Ministry be a nodal authority for this?
Yes, ministry is a nodal authority, and let me tell you that like even this partial opening which was done, that was done through the MHA notification. And how the MHA notification was done? Before this MHA notification came, then Ministry of Commerce and Industry received feedback from all these stakeholders, and one of the feedback was just that activities should be started. Then Ministry of Commerce Secretary DIPP had written a letter to MHA, and based on that letter of DIPP Secretary, this provision was incorporated in the MHA notification, permitting the activities of SEZ and EOU to be resumed. But as I stated that the situation of hotspot or containment in that particular district, in that particular area, that has to be taken into account by the local administration. And but after this thing, what has come today, after this 20th of April, yesterday, Honorable Commerce and Industry Minister has already taken stock of the situation. He had interaction with all the additional secretary and joint secretaries in the Ministry of Commerce, which are handling different export promotion council and different product group. And these export promotion councils, their ground situation, ground realities, that feedback has been taken up, and based on that, Ministry of Commerce will take a view and will provide a feedback to MHA. Certainly, Ministry of Commerce is a nodal agency in respect of export and taking the feedback and coordinating, and we will certainly do needful.
Sir, can I add, sir? Can I add one more point?
Yeah, please.
Yes, Mr. Raj.
Like you said, sir, at the beginning, so this district authorities are assessing the situation and taking decision. And yesterday, one of our neighbor district in Nellore, they issued a detailed guidelines based on the MHA to allow all activities in the green zone, almost everything. So it depends upon the red zone and then the containment zone and all.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr.
sir.
Raj.
I'll just take one more question before we conclude. Since we have a foreign audience also, and I noticed that there are some audience from US also in joining this event. Sir, quickly, if you could just share with them if any foreign company want to set up here a unit in SEZ, so how much time it takes, and broadly, I mean, how they are in a beneficial position compared to units in other areas of other domestic tariff area.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mehta, for this very valid question. You see, once you are coming for making investment in India, then when you make the investment in a unit in SEZ, 100% FDI is allowed in the SEZ units through the automatic route, excepting only those sectors where there is a certain restrictions. Otherwise, most of the sectors are through the automatic route, and 100% FDI is allowed. And this approval to the unit, that is given in the zone itself. There is an approval committee meeting in every SEZ, which is chaired by the development commissioner, in which representative of other central government and the state government, they are the members, and the approval is given in that SEZ unit itself. So a unit has to, a foreign investor has to make a decision. He has to select which SEZ they want to go. They have to make an online application for that setting up unit in that particular SEZ. That is taken up, and approval committee meetings are held regularly, The approvals are given instantly on that in case it is meeting the eligibility criteria. And as stated in the SZ, developed land is already in place, electricity, water, security, customs, all the benefits are already available. Let me also assure you that SEZ Act and policy does not make any distinction between a domestic investor and the foreign investor. All the benefits which are available in the SEZ policy are equally available to a international investor as well. So they are most welcome. They can come if they have got any questions on the website. The addresses of all the development commissioners, they are there. They can send email to them, they can speak to them, and they can send email to me as well. My email ID lb.singhal lb.singhal@nic.in SINGHAL@nic.in. I would certainly respond to each and every email which I.
Thank you so much, sir. To add to this, if any foreign investor, they want to set up a branch office in special economic zones, they even don't need any approval for setting up of a branch office from even RBI. It is under automatic route. They can straight away come and take approval for setting up of unit and commence their operations without any delay. I think this entire approval process takes 3 to 4 weeks time, provided all the information is available by the units. And as rightly said by Dr. Singhal, that any questions they can pose, they can send, all the audience can send. So my email ID is also I'm providing. You can share it with ASSOCHAM as co-chairman of the SEZ Council. My email ID is Hitendra HITENDR@centrumlegal.com. So if you have any questions, any legal issues concerning the special economic zones or Indian legislation, particularly Foreign Exchange Management Act, or any other law impacting the foreign investment, so you are most welcome to write to me. We will be very happy to respond to your questions and to support your investment into India. So just to conclude, India offers host of opportunities. The mere fact that India offers you a huge marketplace compared to any other country. So if you want to come and set up your units in India, so not only that you get access to low cost labor, easy availability of raw materials, very good logistics available, and within India you have choices that you can be in a domestic tariff area, also in a special economic zone also. So special economic zone, as I mentioned, that they enjoy also host of benefits. These are fiscal benefits also, like exemption or refund from goods and services tax. If you are in a special economic zone, you don't actually incur any GST implication on your rentals. For example, if you're an IT company, rent is one of the biggest components, so you enjoy benefits from the the GST implication on rent, or you you are there, then all your issues, you need not go to multiple authorities within while being in a special economic zone unit, and all kind of business friendly regulators are there to support you. I mean, this is a biggest difference that SEZs they make. And from the performance of special economic zone, if I was to share quickly, from 2006 it started with a turnover of 22,000 crore rupees. Rather, it was 8,000 crore in 2000 when this EPZ scheme was closed, when SEZ was started, and it reached 7 lakh crore rupees in a short span of, you can say, 15 years or so. So which is actually evident that how these SEZs are performing. I think now the time is already up, 4 o'clock. So I thank all the panelists, and my special thanks to Dr. LB Singhal for taking out time and responding to all the queries in very detailed manner and with ease. And thanks so much, Mr. Mutturaj, and my thanks to Shri Bhuvnesh Seth and my chairman, Shri Ravi Sanna Reddy, who is joined through audio, who was not able to connect through video. So he's there on the audio, and thanks for his constant guidance and directions. And my thanks to the SOCHM Secretariat, Mr. D.S. Rajora, and other colleagues, Anil, our IT team led by Rohit and Kushal. Thank you, everybody. We look forward to having your further questions and emails. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My thanks to Ravindra Sangareddy. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Saab. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think our